And in the summer months where it extremely gets hot, it stops the heat going in. Loft insulation, the wool, is obviously the cheaper product.
The hats, keeping us nice and warm up top.
But the thickness of the insulation board is very important.
Insulate the property if it's not already.
Cheap option to retain heat into the house so it doesn't evaporate through the roof.
Makes sense. So, hey Minaj, this is our third podcast
So far.
And the first one we went through just general energy efficiency, and then we were talking a lot last time about solar, commercially or residential. Today we're going to go through insulation.
Wow.
So listen, first question up. Tell us about insulation. What's the benefits? Why should I do it? Why should I check?
Well, there's loads advantages of doing insulation to a home. One, obviously, it retains the heat during the winter months. And in the summer months where it extremely gets hot, it stops the heat going in, so kind of keeps the house kind of cool.
Okay.
The other advantage is while you're retaining heat in the house, you're also reducing your bills, which is obviously less burden on your boiler or your heating source. The other thing is that our housing stock in the UK is pretty old. And you can see down some streets that they look so old and aged. By doing the insulation, you're also putting a brand new front of the house, which means it gives that new look. I did my house 10 years ago and it still looks fresh.
Yeah.
So aesthetically, it absolutely looks brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. And so just thinking about it, and again, go back to think of it as putting a coat on or a hat on or whatever. So as insulation, what are the types of insulation a property should have?
Well, foremost, where is the heat loss? So your majority heat loss occurs through the loft, through the walls,
like your heads,
those up. And then two are your primary goals. Then you lose some through your glazing, and the other one is if you have a subfloor, through your subfloor. Majority of the heat loss is through the walls and through the loft. So primarily, the first thing a homeowner should do is check the loft.
Yeah.
Make sure loft insulation is according to building standards, which ideally we recommend to the customer for insulation to be at least 300 mil.
Yeah.
But more important, just the 300 mil, it cannot be compressed, because then it loses its thermal value.
Yeah.
And quite commonly, lofts are used for storage.
Yeah.
So when lofts are done, the homeowner needs to tell the operatives or whoever's installing the loft to see if they want a kind of a platform or a sub-platform to put their storage on top, not compromising the loft.
So insulation, if I think back over the years of the houses we had, I remember growing up, there was zero loft insulation, which is obviously the worst case. Then maybe properties as 20 years ago that we were getting were in 150 mil.
100 to 150.
And that standardly, then you had the boards that were probably the height, the joists were 150 mil. So if recommendation is 300 to get maximum effect, presumably you have to build the joists up to...
Correct.
Okay, that makes
sense. So platforms on, loft platforms for storage, and then advising the customer or the homeowner not to put anything on the loft insulation so it doesn't squeeze down. I mean, there are other products. If loft insulation, the wool is obviously the cheaper product, but there are also phenolic boards or insulation boards, which are condensed boards, which put in between the joists. But obviously, they're a bit more expensive than the wool.
So for the basic, most cost effective, you roll a mat, 300 mil, You need to get the joists built up to make sure it sits in there. If, like most of us, then you want to use your loft as your home dumping ground to hide your Christmas decorations, etc., and you want a board, I guess with the board then it's not compressing, so that's why your joists need to be built.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. You can't compress the wall.
Okay.
And obviously adequate ventilation up there.
Yeah.
Is important. That's why you don't cover the eaves.
Yeah.
And in general, yeah, that's your quick, cheap option to retain heat into the house so it doesn't evaporate through the roof.
Makes sense. And then in terms of general house aging, so how far, if we said, how far back would we go? So presumably now all new homes are built with 300 mil in the main.
Yes, so new builds have to conform to Part L.
Yeah.
Which are quite rigorous to get to a certain CBC
So
level.
new homes is not going to be an issue.
No, it's the old stock.
How far back do we go when it was 150 typically? 10 years ago.
Probably the 150 mil will be your oldest British standards, which probably 20, 25 years ago.
Okay.
So where 100 mil was acceptable at that time.
And then even further still before it was kind of a standard, and then most would have been developed to at least 150 mil, but with zero, I guess homes pre-1970s, 60s were dangerous.
I would say even go back to that, homes that were built in the 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Which is your really old housing stock.
Yeah.
But that housing stock is the character of our homes.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, you have the Victorian homes, you got different types of homes, brick. And we want to retain that. We want to retain our character because we have a character within our old stock. But it's also challenging getting them efficient.
Cool. Okay, so that's your loft. That's at the beginning of the hats. Now, a lot of homes have now gone up into the loft and built extra rooms. So now you're into the roof rather than just that's your floor now. So what's the option there? How do I do that and insulate that best?
So anything post 2000, it's a building reg that when you do a loft conversion, in the energy efficient way, it's called room in the roof.
Yeah.
They require you to put insulation boards within the rafters, obviously leaving a 50 mil gap to allow airflow. So that's anything that's done after 2000. Pre-2000 where loft conversions were done, obviously they weren't insulated. Then there is a system out there that you can do what we call in our industry room in the roof insulation.
Yeah.
To insulate that room and make it warmer, because I'm sure in the winter, if it's not insulated, it's probably going to be the coldest room.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess if you are just about to convert a loft, then again, it's basically the opposite to the floor. The joists are down the side and you're rollering out that way, or presumably spraying with
No, spray is not allowed. There's too many issues with spray foam. So no. So it's definitely no, don't do spray foam. It's actually a phenolic board that goes in between the rafters, because normally the rafters are anywhere between 70 to 100 mil.
Okay.
But you need to leave a 50 mil gap for the air to flow through. You certainly don't. You want the loft to breathe. You want your house to breathe.
So if I've got a room and roof extension that isn't insulated, so it was done a while back, how do I then insulate? Bear in mind it's probably got plasterboard, etc.
You go on top of the plastic. So there are sisters, but get out.
Makes sense. So I guess that covers the hats, keeping us nice and warm up top, and we move then down to the crux of the walls, windows, doors. Now obviously with windows now, double glaze, even triple glaze now from single, so that's blocking, obviously keeping the heat retention there. doors the same,
Yeah.
much more stable, not letting drafts through and those types of things, all the obviouses. But the walls themselves is the difficult bit. So again, presumably based on those same eras, 40s, 50s build, maybe none insulation, then it's getting better, and to now where it's at standard. So how do you externally insulate the property if it's not already?
Okay, so based on the type of wall you have, so you're right, the old stock, which is back in the 40s to around the 70s, it's a single brick wall. So you can't technically inject anything into the wall. Then you've got your cavity walls. That was after the 1970s, where it's got two walls going up and a cap in the middle.
Yeah.
That's the easy and cheap one, which you can fill insulation between the gap. So that's cavity wall insulation. Your old stock, where it's a single brick, we technically put a blanket around it. So it's an insulation board around it. But the thickness of the insulation board is very important. If you don't put the correct size in, you're not meeting the U value. And if you're not meeting the U value, your return on investment goes down. You're not getting value for money.
Okay.
Um,
And we'll come back to the U value and those level of details. So effectively, just from your baseline, I've got potentially an option to cavity, which is inside.
Yep.
If it hasn't been done already.
Yep.
Potentially, I haven't got that option because it was single brick, and therefore I can't go in and do that into the middle. Therefore, I'm left with a internal or external. But I'm just thinking from a consumer, presumably, obviously, we're talking about the widths that would take up of extra width. Internal is going to eat into my space.
Yep.
Because it's all round in my rooms. External obviously does the same, but it's outside. So presumably external is less intrusive, and also it's not eating into your inside space. Is that most popular?
So it's your external should be the first choice, because you're coming out 100 mil, which is recommended by us, which gives you a less than 0.3 U value. But where internal is used is where it's a listed property or a conservation area where you can't do it from the outside. You're restricted for planning.
Okay.
So you do it inside. But when you do internal, you would do internal on all exposed walls, so exposed to the outside.
Yeah.
And that comes in approximately 103 mil. So you will lose 103 mil.
Basically, the square of my house or the rectangle of my house, I'd obviously not needed to do inside in terms of partition walls. It's just
your exposed.
Yeah. And so, and you talk about 100 mil there, and again, we'll go and look at the detail in a minute of what that looks like. So if I've got a be exposed on two sides, I'm going to lose 100 mil, maybe 110 with plaster, etc. On that side and that side.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And presumably then you've got to install sockets and...
Yeah. So you got to move the radiators, you got to move any electrical appliances or your baseboards. If you got coving, you're going to need to do all that to bring it back to the same look as before.
Okay. And so naturally leads you to maybe as a owner of a property to look more external if that's a possibility. And as you rightly say, you want to keep the look and the feel and the aesthetics with the older properties, especially. So in my head, I'm thinking if you put this new external wall insulation and you're replastering it or however you're finishing it, are you not losing then the character of the property?
No, because we're able to replica if we need to replica.
Okay.
So we've done Victorian houses or Tudor style houses, and we've brought the character back by insulating as well. There's various options like different types of finishing or rendering, as they call it. And there's also options to brick slit, so you get the character back of the house.
Okay.
So I don't feel that you can lose the character of the home.
Maybe only if it's old stone and that type of thing is
Yeah.
just, yeah, and that
Other than that, yeah. Otherwise,
brick finish.
pre-finish with mosaic finish or render finishes.
Okay. And we'll go and have a look at some of those, and it'll be really cool to just see what that looks like in your
Yeah.
showroom. So okay, so I get that. And in terms of then the ultimate question that always come, those are big jobs and costly jobs, right?
Yeah.
So we probably then come into the return of investment is always the golden measure that anybody looks at improvements. So how does that look from a customer? Is it worth them doing other than you keep them nice and warm and more consistently nice and warm? What's that return on quite a significant investment?
It's your return on investment could be up to realistically between 12 and 15 years.
Okay.
They say an average saving of between 800 to £1,000 off your bills per year if the installation is done correctly.
Yeah.
And people are doing it.
Yeah.
Especially some of the new technologies and new heating technologies that you need to do, really and truly, to make that work the most efficient. You should insulate the home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you always said that with other measures, so people who are looking to make their homes more energy efficient for whatever reason, insulation is the absolute priority first, because the others don't work so well or get the most benefit out of things like solar and heat pumps and all these new. So insulating first is the recommendation.
Well, I always say fabric first.
Fabric first, yeah.
Yeah, always. I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't. And especially a lot of homeowners are now choosing to develop their homes, current homes. And when they take on that project, with planning now, the new Part L regulations, they're kind of forced into making sure the house becomes energy efficient.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, makes sense. So insulate first, think of because of hat, coat, gloves, windows, doors, stop all the leaves coming in. And we all know leak middle of winter like it is now, and you leave the door open, how quickly your home gets cold, or shut that door.
Yeah.
The same on I think last summer we experienced it was really, really hot. Shut the door, windows, keep the cool in. And that's only obviously going to be quicker and worse the less insulation you've got, and obviously the more the better. It keeps it cooler for longer or consistently warmer.
Oh, Andy, have you noticed how weather patterns in the last 10 years,
Yeah,
they're drastically changed?
they're extreme, aren't they?
Yeah, they go from one end to the other end.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we have to make a conscious decision as homeowners. Not only that, the other return on investment, which I haven't mentioned to you, is a lot of buyers now who are buying homes are now looking at energy efficiency of the home, simply because it's almost like a second mortgage.
Yeah.
This cost of energy has spiraled. So people, when they are buying their homes, they're also comparing EPCs and seeing, okay, down the road is EPC B, but this home is EPC B. Okay, it might be a little bit more expensive, but I'm not having to do anything.
And it's funny because I think the general public a lot of the time are still a little bit unknown about the meaning of the EPCs. And I was until I came here, what's the value of that? And it's becoming more and more known now. But I think now to think of an EPC as the higher and better it is, i.e. the closer to A than lower to G, that's increasing value in your property because people know if it's insulated, sensible heating system. So again, forgetting about the reasons why your property is raising in value, which I guess if I'm investing 10, 15,000, you've almost got an immediate return on investment because of the property value.
Mm.
So maybe your mortgage rate you can get is cheaper because you've got more loan to value. Maybe you're letting it and you can charge more. So that makes sense of why it makes sense.
Well, the EPC, just for your information, is being enhanced. I think later this year it's going to be released. It's the HEM. which is a backup to APCs, which give
I'm used to EBC and now it's going to be AGM.
which actually goes into more detail, and it's more informative for homeowners to make the correct decisions, not just based on recommendations. So it's going to go into more detail of different types of scenarios, particular for that home, so that homeowners can make constructive decisions on what to do to make your home energy efficient. So watch out that space. It's coming in around the October time.
And basically it's just getting more detailed and data driven.
More detail, more data,
Yeah.
more clarity for the homeowners.
Yeah.
Because sometimes homeowners, you mention insulation, you mention air source heat pumps, you mention solar, but because it's a rapidly moving industry, consumers get kind of confused or baffled.
But I guess as well, I think, as we're always in this industry, because I guess the kind of debate and what side you're on or off. But at the end of the day, I always look at it as if the world's moving in this way and it's cheaper, then that's a good enough reason. But the move to smart meters,
Yep.
And that's similar. You used to get a monthly reading, which you could never probably understand what it broke down and meant. And this was my bill, where now people are getting more of an understanding because it's translating into a daily pound. And I can see, we spend £10 a day, or we spend £5 a day, or 50. So people are getting them more savvy because they got that data in front of them to switch the lights off. It is, yeah.
Or use a machine or washing machine at a certain times of the day. I think smart meter is not only that, it's accurate readings for the consumer. And it's a behavioral change.
It is, yeah.
It encourages behavior change to save on energy, because I think in the past, we've taken energy for granted. Really and truly, I think energy is a commodity.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think we should need to embrace it and kind of save it.
Yeah.
Because 100%, I think in the past, the older generation is like, leave that light on and let's fill the whole kettle with water and that's a boiling water for my cups of tea, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a behavior change.
And I think a lot of these tools and gadgets and apps and things like that now they turn the complexity. So kilowatt hour use and all these things that confuse us, or me in the past, are now being translated into pounds
and pennies.
I get that. I understand that. I can see 10's worse than 5 a day, and so you naturally then are behavior changing because you get it and it's simple. And as we've said before, I've been on this journey of electric car and EV charging and solar and looking to go on a heat pump. So you're starting to work. Every home's so personal.
Yeah.
When do I set this to this and change this from this? It's winter now. It needs to. I charge my car, and the energy companies are then really changing, because it used to just be phone up who's the cheapest this year, and you change to now you're thinking about your whole system and setup, and so are they. So if you charge your car at night, we do a great rate to all that where it's lowest, and so you then create your habit to do that. So I think people are getting a lot more savvy now, but it's being explained a lot easier.
And with new technology, Andy, it's getting to the point where you could potentially be self-sustaining, and you can reduce that energy cost burden. But like anything else, it's it's always the upfront investment.
Yeah, yeah. As you know, my safe to go-to checkup now is AI. And I say, I have this system, and I screenshot, and these are my bills, and I screenshot, and I put them all in and say, tell me how to set my system best for me. And say, right, okay, set this to this and this to this, and go, okay, go to this company. The best rates on this. So
absolutely. I mean, the ultimate, what's the goal? To reduce that cost, energy cost. And no, I've done it to my house, and I feel good that one, I've reduced my cost, but I've also done something.
Yeah.
You're well, not only that, I'm not even going to lie, it prompted my value up.
And there's always a keep up with the Jones scenario.
That's it, down your street.
I remember 10 years ago, a lot of neighbors and whatever, and I'd never have an electric car, or I'd never do this or have solar or all these things. And then you see one make the move, and all of a sudden,
You are 5 in the hills.
because I'm now in the industry, they will come in and asking questions. How does this work? I thought you hated these. No, so people are moving along now, but ultimately because they've been hit in the pocket with petrol prices, diesel prices, electricity and gas in general. So yeah, always helps,
Always help.
nudge people along. I'm really interested to go and have a look at some of the finishes. Would you be kind enough to go and show us?
Absolutely.
What is it? Okay.